Hey friends, just a quick note before I begin this interview with Bix Weir. A lot of great information in this upcoming interview you're about to hear, but first I just want to say that 10 minutes after we completed our call, Dotcom released his statement. It's a limited statement about his knowledge that Seth Rich was the DNC leaker. And as you guys know, I've already reported on this, but he says, I know that Seth Rich was involved in the DNC leak. Now, Zero Hedge and others are saying Dotcom disappoints. I really don't get it. Here's the thing. Dotcom is a famous rich guy, and he says that he's consulted with his lawyers, and he accepts that his full statement should be provided to the authorities, and he's prepared to do that so that there can be a full investigation. He says his lawyers will speak with the authorities regarding the proper process, and he says, if my evidence is required to be given in the United States, I would be prepared to do so if appropriate arrangements are made, and he's asking for a guarantee from Special Counsel Mueller on behalf of the U.S. for safe passage from New Zealand to the U.S. and back. That's perfectly appropriate. I don't know who in this environment that would want to blow the whistle and share the goods on criminals as hardcore as those involved at the DNC that wouldn't want to be assured safe passage. We're talking about the assassination of Seth Rich here. So for anybody that wants to downplay the statement from Dotcom, I'd like to see how you handle the pressure of being on the world stage pointing fingers at people like Hillary Clinton and John Podesta. Dotcom concluded his statement by saying in the coming days, we will be communicating with the appropriate authorities to make the necessary arrangements. That doesn't sound like a limited hangout, nor does it sound like a disappointment to me. The assassination of Seth Rich is the key, and as you are about to hear in this interview, it is the domino that could cause all of the other dominoes to fall. Thanks for tuning in. Now here's my interview with Bix Weir. Friends, thanks so much for joining us today. It is Tuesday, the 23rd of May. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a number of critical sound bites to play for you today from WorldNet Daily investigative journalist Liz Crokin, and I have on the line Bix Weir to help me digest it all. Bix, welcome back.
Thank you, Sean. It's crazy to see all this stuff coming out in the open that was always going on behind the scenes. But now it's out in the open, and we're starting to see just how insane these battles are.
Yeah, I actually have goosebumps. I am so thrilled at the amount of truth that's spilling out. It's said that the DNC members at the highest level, which would suggest Podesta, Donna Brazil, these people are literally freaking out. Zero Hedge reported about that. Anon is reporting that citizen investigators are right on the verge of breaking this thing wide open. We will soon know who Seth Rich's assassins were, and if not the names of the assassins, certainly those who ordered the assassination of Seth Rich. This is the tipping point, Bix. Now, if Hillary Clinton had gotten into the White House, she literally would have had a license to kill and cover up her crimes. That's what she was counting on. But she's not in there, so she can't stack the deck at the Department of Justice or the FBI. There is a real potential that people like Podesta and Hillary Clinton and Donna Brazil and anybody else related to this cover-up of the assassination of Seth Rich may soon be in prison blues. This is a big, big deal. I want to play some of these sound bites from Liz Crokin here. An incredible interview done by Doug Hagman with Liz Crokin. We're going to play some of those sound bites. But your impressions right now on this good guy versus bad guy scenario playing out, it's very real, Bix.
It is absolutely real. But remember, when this stuff does come out, the real stuff, the stuff about, the DNC, the stuff about the Clintons, the stuff about the rigging of the silver market, it will cause everything else to collapse. And that's what they've been putting off, the collapse of the federal government, the whole system. Complete confidence will be blown sideways, which it should be because they lie, cheat, steal, and murder. But remember, when this stuff does come out, it's not going to be a trickle. It'll be an avalanche of the criminality that had been going on. And I think it's planned. It's planned for this time in history. And I don't know if it's today or tomorrow or within the next few months, but it's all going to just come flooding out. And it really will shake the foundations of the United States.
Well, I'll tell you what, it is long overdue that these deep state criminals who literally operate as though they have a license to kill, and I'm talking specifically about Hillary Clinton and her stooges, John Podesta, the Podesta Group, these people need to be brought to swift justice, and I cannot wait for the Dotcom information to spill today. So I'm going to try to get this piece released as soon as possible, guys, and we'll try to keep this thread going and make it as current as possible. I want to give a shout out to some of the best alternative journalists out there on YouTube right now. Titus Frost, Tracy Beans, The Honeybee, Anon, so many people moving mountains to try to keep all of this criminality in focus. And Titus Frost released a great video today, DC Police, Seth Rich, Heather Podesta, and Rothschild Alefantis connection. You guys absolutely must watch, must listen to that video. But even more to the point, I want to share some incredible information here. This is Liz Crokin, the investigative journalist who appeared on the Hagman Report, Bix, just yesterday, and boy, is she breaking bombshells as it pertains to Seth Rich. The name of this video is Update on Seth Rich Murder, and I want to play this for you right now. Listen to this.
I mean, I said on Friday, I'm telling you, this Seth Rich story is the domino piece that's going to make all of them fall down. The whole house is about to fall. Because if indeed, like you said earlier, if indeed Seth Rich was indeed the leaker, that means it wasn't Russia. So their lie about Russia hacking, and colluding against Hillary during this election was a complete lie. So that ruins that narrative. It proves that the DNC has assassins. It proves that the DC Police Department's corrupt. It also proves that politicians that are closely tied to the DC Police Department are corrupt. And it also proves that a huge chunk of the mainstream media is covering up for this. And as far as I'm concerned, if you're covering up for this murder, you're complicit in it.
They are, aren't they, Bix? They're complicit. The mainstream media, with the exception of really Sean Hannity at this point, I guess Rush Limbaugh mentioned it yesterday, the mainstream media, certainly on the left, CNN, MSNBC, they're completely in cover-up mode, and they are pinning all of their hopes for keeping this stuff suppressed on this BS Russian hacker garbage.
Yeah, and when you think about the reality of what WikiLeaks has already released and all the Vault 7 information, there are no secrets when it comes to the CIA and the NSA. They have everybody's data, have everybody's email. They know exactly what Seth Rich sent and received. They know exactly what the DNC sent and received. I mean, there are no secrets anymore. So whether or not they are withholding the information, because they haven't closed, I don't believe they've closed the Seth Rich case. It's still an open case. And there is also a question of whether or not Seth Rich is even dead. Maybe it was clear that he was alive when he got to the hospital. And if you listen to some of the attending doctors, they said they thought he was going to be fine. And then the next day it was announced he was dead. Maybe he's in witness protection somewhere, although I don't think they need him with the amount of evidence they already have of the criminality within the DNC, within the Clintons, within the Republican Party. I mean, this really, the rumor is it's 1/3 of Congress that will be removed instantly. So it is it's a big deal. So the day that the proof is out and given that, no, it wasn't the Russians hacking, and if those people who claim the Russians hacking our election is some gigantic thing that can't happen, the United States, hacks everybody's election. We overthrow democratically nominated presidents. We have murder squads, assassin squads. We got everything. So everything that Russia claims, we claim that they're doing and hacking our election, we do it anyway all over the world. And if you don't believe that we mess with the elections, just look at Donna Brazile giving Hillary Clinton all the questions before one of the town hall meetings.
Well, that's right. And I just want to say this. This whole Russian hacker thing has been a straw man from the beginning, and it also helped frame up this fake news attack, right? This whole Google rollout attacking anybody that would speak about truth as being fake news.
Just in the last 2 days, we announced that we will remove advertising from anything we identify as fake news.
And the important thing, the point that Liz Crokin makes here in that last soundbite, is that this is the domino piece that will bring it all down, because the DNC and the mainstream media has continued to propagate the lie of the Russian hack, saying that it was Russia that went in to turn the election in the favor of Donald Trump by releasing all of those emails to WikiLeaks, the Podesta emails. It is now being proven to the entire world that it was Seth Rich, a DNC insider that wanted to blow the whistle on the massive corruption that he was appalled to see happening in his own party. And it appears that they whacked him for it. Now, here's the other thing. I want to say this. I'm going to play this from Titus Frost, who makes this note. Now, remember, Liz Crokin just mentioned that this information proves that the DNC has assassins. I think that's spot on. Now listen to this, because you guys will recall that another decent man was found dead. Another decent man died 30 days after doing something that would have devastated and hurt the DNC, and his name was Sean Lucas. Listen to this.
In the wake of all the Seth Rich stuff, it seems everyone has forgotten about Sean Lucas, the guy who went and served the DNC papers. Well, he was also murdered. So where's the investigation for Sean Lucas and Seth Rich and the obvious conspiracy to kill both of them for the benefit of the Hillary Clinton campaign?
Now, I'll pause it there. That was Titus Frost. And again, Titus Frost is dropping bombs right over the target because it appears that Sean Lucas, at least to me, Bix, it appears that Sean Lucas was also the victim of an assassination. All sorts of drugs found in his system, heart-stopping drugs. And conveniently, that was just a few weeks after he had delivered papers, lawsuit papers, to sue the DNC for their corruption in stealing the election for Hillary from Bernie. So much corruption at the DNC that it almost defies belief. But we've seen this history of corruption with the Clinton family themselves going back decades, all the way to Mena, Arkansas. Bix?
Yeah, definitely. And you just look at the Clinton body count. I think it's over 100 now, and these are people who worked directly, indirectly, or were in some way associated with the Clintons that have ended up dead either mysteriously or through suicide or fake suicide or strange illness. You just think about your life and how many people of your close associates are dead or died of strange circumstances. And you say, well, how come with the Clintons it's over 100 now?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely, they are involved in it. And truthfully, it's probably one of their more menial crimes. Murder is just low on the list compared to the other things they do. But it's not just the Clintons. It is literally a third of Congress, and a large chunk of that are Republicans, and McCain and his crowd. I mean, it is as bad as can be. If Trump does drain the swamp ultimately, now I'm not saying Trump is the savior of the United States at all. I think Trump was placed there by what I have called for years the good guys. The good guys are trying to take down the bad guys that have ruled our lives for so long. But these wars and these battles are coming into the open, and it's easy for anyone to see now that there is an ongoing battle. This battle didn't just start with the election. This started decades ago, and I talk about it in the Road to Ruta. If you just look at the Road to Ruta comic books, Ruta's saying, Ruta's grandma, which is Arthur Burns, the old Fed head of the Fed, is saying everybody's scared of these big people that control us. It goes back before Kennedy. I mean, this is an ongoing battle for the sovereignty of the United States, the truth and honesty that we once had and we lost somewhere along the line, probably after 1913, the invention of the Fed. It just became a lie after lie after lie. And the more lies you tell to protect people from the truth for one reason or another, the more opportunity you give to these bad guys to control our lives. And that's exactly what had been done, where we were before, probably before 9/11. Then 9/11 really kicked off the good guys to say we got to end this.
All right, well, let's keep our eye on the ball here with this Seth Rich story today. And I'm going to go back to Liz Crokin because she's talking about some of the extreme red flags that are appearing as the DNC. Note that the DNC, of course, didn't contribute to the fund. There was a reward offered by Wiki-leaks, by Julian Assange, for information leading to the arrest of those that murdered Seth Rich. Of course, the DNC didn't want to pitch in and contribute to that fund. And now there's a report that the DNC, through Donna Brazil, has gotten in the way of the private investigator, Wheeler, hired by the family. Brazil apparently went to the police and said, why is this guy snooping around? Now, if that sounds like somebody who wants the crime solved, then I guess I need to watch more Matlock, because I don't think that's how it typically goes. If Donna Brazil and the DNC wanted to have Seth Rich's murderers caught, they would help fund the reward, they would increase the reward, and Donna Brazil wouldn't be going to the police saying, why is this private investigator meddling? Now, I want to say this, too. It's also odd that Brad Bowman, the DNC crisis consultant, is now the family's spokesperson, and Liz Wheeler makes that point very well here. Listen to this, Bix.
The whole thing's such a mess, and it's very obvious to me that this family, the DNC and certain outlets are lying about this, said that the family didn't want anyone to investigate this any further. Well, that's a lie. They made a video a few months ago. They set up a whole GoFundMe account to raise money so they could investigate it on their own. That is a huge lie. Yep. And what grieving family would tell their private investigator who's close to finding the murderer to stop investigating the case? I mean, it just makes no sense. And if Seth indeed was the leaker, why would they hire the only group with a motive to kill him to be their spokesperson? Okay? I mean, you guys know how these people operate. You know how the deep state operates. You know how the Clinton mafia operates. These people, they use fear. They use intimidation. I mean, they will hurt you. They will hurt your family. They will hurt your pets. They'll slash your tires. They will do horrible things to you.
I got to tell you, man, I love her. She apparently used to work for the Chicago Tribune as a beat journalist. She's the real deal. She works for WorldNet Daily. She's breaking bombshell news on this Seth Rich murder thing. And she represents me and you, Bix. She represents Activist Post, Zero Hedge, InfoWars. Throw them in there if you'd like. Who else? Our friends at TruthStream Media. Those of us that speak truth every single day in an effort to try to topple this criminality, this criminal element, this deep state that has seized control of our government. My hat's off here to Liz Crokin. She's really doing a great job speaking truth. I have more sound bites to come.
I agree 100%. I think the internet has opened that up to the average everyday person to say, I don't believe these lies that we're being told, and I'm going to do something about it. And even though they're trying to demonetize everything on YouTube, people aren't stopping. You look at the amount of videos posted and the amount of information getting out there, people aren't stopping. There's no way they can put the cat back in the bag now.
No, the genie's out of the bottle, and I'll tell you what, this is literally, I think, an epic moment, Bix, because as you know, the Clintons have been in power at the highest echelons of power within our government now going back decades, just like the Bushes. And I always like to say that the Bushes created the Clintons, okay, because it was Papa Bush when he was the head of the CIA that was helping to run drugs through Mena, Arkansas. And you mentioned the Clinton body count. If people want to go back and look at that list, what they will find is one coroner that was employed by Bill Clinton or appointed by Bill Clinton or involved with Bill Clinton for years and years and years in Arkansas. And every time one of these bodies showed up with two hands tied behind its back and two taps to the back of the head, it was ruled a suicide. In some cases, the head missing altogether, a suicide. Let me play this for you, and this is from Liz Crokin talking about this motley crew. And of course, she's referring to the Clintons' motley crew, which includes John Podesta. Listen to this.
And I want to cover this in future stories because it's very obvious to me there's a cover-up. And there are so many ties between, this motley crew. John Podesta, Robbie Mook, all these DNC operatives, these Clinton operatives. There are so many ties between them and the DC police chief, the commissioner, the mayor, and the people that are, freaking out the most about this story, are the ones that are linked to it. Like John Podesta came out today, just frantically trashing Trump. And it's like they're acting like rabid animals that are cornered. I mean, you got the spokesperson telling people to go to hell. You're supposed to be a crisis consultant. And that's how you deal with a crisis. These people are losing their minds.
They really are freaking out, Bix. And you know why they're freaking out? Because they are scared to death that this vicious truth, that this assassination of Seth Rich was ordered at the highest levels, in John Podesta's own words via his own email leaks there, the Podesta email leaks, to make an example of the leaker. Bix, this is one of the biggest things that you and I have ever talked about. This is one of the biggest events that I can recall in the last 10, 20 years, because this is the domino that could bring down at least the lefty side of the deep state.
I agree to one point. I mean, the timing of it obviously is perfect timing for the takedown of the bad guys. This stuff needs to get exposed, and if it's the Seth Rich murder that breaks apart the Russian, the Russian hack story that they've been pushing to get Trump out of office, then it is. But I mean, we're talking hundreds of murders that have gone on in Washington. This is a timing one. Will it hit the front page of the paper? Will it cause a domino effect? I hope so, but again, there is so much more evidence of wrongdoing and criminality that you got to sit back and say, well, even if it comes out that it was clear that Seth Rich was murdered and he was the leaker, then they got to make the case going back to the DNC and the Clintons. And I mean, we're talking years for that to happen. But on the other hand, if it comes out that they're going to release Hillary Clinton's 650,000 documents from Anthony Weiner's laptop to see the real story and show people what's really going on, which I think Trump would do if there was any potential for him to get impeached, I think that would be the nail in the coffin. And but all this stuff has to come out. All this stuff is basically being held back from humanity, from the people of the United States, and we're being fed the lies through CNN, which is the most egregious news station. I wouldn't even call them a news station anymore. It's just sad and embarrassing. They'll make up one lie after the other and say, oh, this is an impeachable offense. There's just so much there. If it's the Seth Rich thing, that's great. I don't think it's the biggest thing there is. I think there's a whole lot more on those 650,000 emails.
You're absolutely right, because those Weiner emails would lead us directly back into the Pedagate story, which is absolutely gigantic and absolutely stretches all across this planet, touches the CIA, touches the very deepest parts of the deep state. So you're 100% right. And I have to say, to Liz Crokin's credit, in this interview, she mentions Pedogate, and she actually says Pedogate. And so she's extremely aware. She may as well work for SGT Report as WND, and she used to work for the Chicago Tribune. So again, my hat's off to her. And I'm going to play one last soundbite from her in which she talks about journalists lying and covering this up, because she is a truth teller. And, to your point, will this be front page news? Well, it probably won't, no matter what Kim.com proves. No matter, even if Julian Assange himself came out and said, absolutely, because Seth Rich is now dead, I can confirm that he was our source. He would never do that because they don't want to reveal their sources, but he's alluded to it time and time again. And Kim.com is going to prove it to be true, I think. But the bottom line is that Podesta, right? John Podesta. If roads lead to John Podesta and Donna Brazile and Hillary Clinton, and they're all involved in this cover-up of the assassination of Seth Rich, how in the world will it hit the front page of the Washington Post when Jeff Bezos bought the Washington Post and has a $600 million contract with the CIA to store its information on a cloud? How in the world can we count on Bezos' blog to share the truth about the assassination of Seth Rich if he has employed John Podesta? That alone is just the most giant conflict of interest that I can even imagine. And that's how corrupt our media is, Bix.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the deal, though. When the truth does come out about Pizzagate, about Pedogate, about Seth Rich, about all this stuff, they're going to go back, and when the facts are out, they're going to go back to the Washington Post and the New York Times and CNN and all the papers that were printing facts, calling us, printing their version of the facts, calling us crazy for even bringing up Pizzagate and stuff like that. And those institutions will be seen for the criminals that they are. And there should be investigations into what their motive was to print those false stories. And that's going to be really interesting. And it's getting back to the YouTube ban on anything related to Pizzagate and Pedogate and stuff like that. Will YouTube and Google, the owner of YouTube, be brought to the mat and say, you guys were hiding the truth about this. You were protecting pedophiles as they abuse children. What are we going to do with you, the mass media who ran cover for people like Podesta and the Clintons and the Bushes and people like that? That's going to be really interesting, the backlash from humanity, from the public, when it's shown that these media institutions that we trusted were part of the game.
Yeah, they're complicit. So Liz Crokin's 100% right. These people who lie, these journalists, quote-unquote journalists who lie and are trying to obfuscate the truth and are trying to cover up all of this stuff coming out about the assassination of Seth Rich, they truly are complicit. And so I'm going to play this final soundbite from Liz Crokin because she really says this better than I can. Listen to this.
It's just really disheartening for me to see so many quote-unquote journalists out there lie. I mean, it makes me sick. I started at the Chicago Tribune as a city news reporter, and I worked with some amazing journalists who who were all about getting the story. They were all about accuracy. They cared about investigative journalism. And just to see these, so-called journalists just blatantly lie. And everyone in the mainstream media seems to be compromised. I've never seen it this bad in my life, ever.
All right, I'll pause it there. And the reason I wanted to play that last soundbite is because I want people to remember that even when I was going to journalism school, I got a degree in journalism from the University of Wisconsin Bix, and even when I was still going to school, it wasn't 6 or 7 corporations that own 90% of the media that Americans digest. There were still many, many, many thousands of family-owned newspapers around the country. And there were many journalists that made a fair wage to play the role that they need to play as the fourth estate. The fourth estate keeping the other 3 branches of government in check. That no longer exists, and that's what she's talking about. There used to be great reporters, great journalists who actually cared about the craft. And those people have all been drummed out of business, just like they're trying to drum the rest of us out of YouTube, right?
From our perspective, there should just be no situation in which fake news gets distributed.
And so, Bix, it begs the question, who's the arbiter of fake news? Who's to decide? Jeff Bezos? CNN? Anderson Cooper? Wolf Blitzer? Who else might decide for us? Could it be Donna Brazil at the DNC? Is it John Podesta, who's now employed by Washington Post as a columnist or as a commentator? I mean, who's to be the arbiter of fake news? My blood is boiling, Bix, because you know exactly what's going on here. They are trying to drum real news, truth news, out of existence completely, just as those 6 or 7 major corporations bought up all the newspapers and fired all the real reporters.
Your blood should boil. You said the media was complicit. I would say they are co-conspirators. I believe that they know the truth. They've investigated it and have decided to report something else. So that is different than just going along with the flow and letting it happen. I think they are conspiring with these bad guys, as I like to call them, to definitely put out fake news, a fake meme, such that they steer the population into getting rid of Trump and some of Trump's guys. And it has worked to a point. I think Trump now, since the firing of Comey, will take the gloves off. And, there's a lot of things that happen in the forefront that that the media won't touch, and Trump won't be telling the media, because we can't let it out that there actually is a culling of these bad guys going on behind the scenes. But they're still knee deep in bad guys in Washington, D.C. I think we're hitting a point where Trump takes the gloves off and says, okay, I'm pulling the plug of the drain right now. Here's information. I know it's going to crash the United States of America. Our entire system will be teetering, but it has to happen. If you look at the cover of The Economist magazine, that's the very first card in the tarot read. It's the Tower card, which is the destruction of everything. So I think we're hitting that point. We're not there yet, but the media and what they're doing is not being complicit. They are co-conspiring with these bad guys.
Yeah, you're 100% right. And you know what? Not only do they co-conspire with the bad guys to cover up the crimes, the blatant crimes, in this case murder, right? They employ people who are involved in potentially this same criminality. And a great example of that is Donna Brazil, who was brought onto CNN as a commentator, a paid commentator, a personality to be on that despicable false news network. And she had to be let go because she leaked some of the questions in one of the debates to her puppet master, Hillary. And so now, listen to this. I'm going to just recap this and come back to this because it's so incredible. Bombshell, Donna Brazil warned off Private Eye on Seth Rich murder. Former Democratic National Committee interim chairwoman Donna Brazil is the high-ranking DNC representative who allegedly called police and the family of murdered DNC staffer Seth Rich and demanded to know why a private investigator was snooping into Rich's death. The Private Eye revealed to WorldNet Daily on Monday. If that does not sound like somebody who's petrified of the truth coming out, Bix, nothing does. I think right now, Donna Brazil, John Podesta, and Hillary Clinton are all probably soiling their adult Depends diapers.
This can't be happening, man. This isn't happening.
Because they are, well, and I think Hillary said it after the election, or right before the election, if we don't win this thing, we're going to be hanging from nooses. I don't think these people are safe anymore. She no longer has a license to kill and cover up her murders if she's not in the White House.
I agree 100%, and I think we are seeing the end game play out, which is great, but it's going to get a lot worse. And I keep telling all my subscribers, because everybody says, the road to Ruta theory is too rosy and happy, and my take is, I'm telling you, you're going to lose every single electronic debt asset that you have, and society is going to be ripped apart by the crashing of the banks and the crashing of our federal government. And you're saying it's a rosy story that I'm telling? This is not a rosy story. This is the takedown of the bad guys, a destruction of the nanny state that we have grown accustomed to. And it is going to be very scary and very dangerous, and many people will die, and that's why they've put it off for so long. That's why they hide things like the Seth Rich murder, is because they know that if the truth came out, society as we know it would collapse. And I think it has to collapse anyway. In order to move forward, we have to cleanse the past and drain the swamp, and that swamp is so infested and so deep that it will rip apart the society that we have come to rely on. So, yeah, I'm very scared about the coming transition, but I know we have to do it. I know this is our mission here on Earth right now, is to end this game and start something new.
Yeah. No, you're right. We have to rip off the Band-Aid, and we have to gouge out that infection so that the arm or the leg can heal. The body politic needs to heal, and that means that people like this need to be brought to justice and put in prison. I don't think that there would be anything better for the health of the republic, if we have one at all anymore, Bix. There'd be nothing better for the health of this nation than to see venomous snakes and traitors like this brought to justice and put in federal prison. And I'm praying that happens. And before we let you go, I do want to just do a couple minutes on cryptocurrencies and precious metals to get your thoughts on that. But I'll just say this for people that are listening, and I know our listeners are very well informed, just like Liz Crokin is very well informed. For anybody, though, to whom this information is new, for anybody who does not understand that what happened on 9/11 was not the full picture of the story, the official story about 9/11 is entirely untrue. There was something far more nefarious that unfolded on 9/11 to take us into these endless unconstitutional wars of aggression. And for anybody that still questions that and doesn't understand that World Trade Center 7 came down at 5:25 in the afternoon, practically in free fall speed, which could only be done with explosives, and that is the smoking gun of 9/11. If that information is new to you and you think that we're all nuts and we're all fake newsers because we share this truth with you, you now need to recognize the fact that assassinations ordered from the highest levels within our government are real. And Seth Rich was murdered. And if you are on the left and you embrace Clinton and the DNC, if you think that Trump is the root of all evil and you identify as a Democrat, you need to wake up to the fact that the deep state is alive and well, and what's happening in the Seth Rich case is showcasing that for all of us. It's an opportunity for all of us to take the red pill and wake up. It's time to wake up. It's time to cleanse our nation of these traitors, these snakes. These are people that need to be brought to justice. Bix, feel free to jump in on that as we turn our attention here to cryptos and silver, because we also need to see justice at the COMEX. I hope the LBMA vault is burning down. We see Reuters, we see Thomson Reuters and CME Group exiting their position at the silver and gold fix, because clearly there's something very nefarious going on at the LBMA. And I'd sure like to see the COMEX collapse under its own weight too, because what we see happening in the cryptocurrencies, with Ethereum going to 160, 170, 180, and Bitcoin hitting $21, $22, $2,300, that's what we should see happening with silver if it were not so brutally manipulated.
I agree. I love talking to you about the conspiracy outside of the monetary system. But my real sweet spot is figuring out who is doing this manipulation of silver. And I think I figured it out with the computers and derivatives. Really interesting time for silver. Right now, I put out a report on YouTube just this morning. Noble Group, which is about the third largest commodity trader, they're the largest trader in Asia, has now gone bust, pretty much. They haven't declared bankruptcy yet. This is a gigantic issue because in silver and gold, we all know it's the derivatives. Noble Group was a huge derivative player in silver and gold and oil, part of the big three, which are Glencore and Trafigura, which are both Mark Rich split-off companies. And if you know the story of Mark Rich that I've outlined many times at the Road to Ruta, he was in charge of the physical side of commodity manipulation, hired by Clinton in the 90s to rig the silver and gold markets in order to facilitate the strong dollar policy. So Noble Group going down is a huge sign that something's going on in silver. There's also a gigantic short position held by the hedge funds, and that's really the rocket fuel for silver moving higher, is the closing out of the shorts. So yeah, great time to buy silver. I think it's still around $17, but it'll jump over 20 really fast in the coming weeks. And as long if they stop the selling as the COMEX selling as it moves up above 20, then you could see the moonshot we've all been waiting for, and hopefully get to some kind of free market in silver. But we're a long way from that. Not in time wise, but in things happening like the COMEX shutting down, LBMA shutting down, LBMA already getting close to shut down. But I think the COMEX will shut down before we have a free market in silver. So yeah, exciting things in the silver market right now.
Yeah, all right. Well, let's just talk, though, about that. You said if the selling subsides at the COMEX, the selling at the COMEX is never going to subside when all they do is throw digital, because it's not the physical that you're talking about. They throw digital assets, paper silver at the market, paper gold at the market, and they can't get away with that as it pertains to Bitcoin or Ethereum or Litecoin or any of these others. But right now, though, there is no apparatus on the COMEX to sell short or to sell digital cryptos into the marketplace, is there?
But there is in the cryptos. All the exchanges deal in crypto derivatives. So, Kraken and all the big exchanges around the world don't actually buy and sell Bitcoin on those aren't blockchain transactions. That's why they can trade 1 million coins in a day. Those are derivatives of cryptocurrencies. So it's not until you pull your crypto out of the exchanges and out of the online wallets that a real transaction takes place. And that's very important, because I hear it all the time that silver's manipulated with computers and derivatives. Yes, it is, obviously. But a lot of people are saying that the Bitcoin and Ethereum and those coins are not subject to manipulation. I would say it's exactly the opposite. All those exchanges that are determining price are not real transactions. Those are transactions within the exchange, and they do not go on the blockchain. So if you see, that's why Mt. Gox blew up, is because they only had about 650,000 coins, but they were trading in the millions and millions of coins per day. And when people started to recognize that and started to take coins out, that's when they said that, oh, we've been hacked. They hadn't been hacked. They just didn't have the coins for people to pull them out.
Well, let me ask you this then, as it pertains to the cryptos running so much higher. I mean, I mentioned that I'd bought, a couple dozen Ethereum at 20. Clearly, I should have bought, a couple thousand back at 8, where it sat for months and months and months and months. And now this thing, even from 20, on that particular little lot, I'm up, 600, 700, 800%. And we don't see that with silver. So the manipulation you're describing in the cryptos is certainly possible. I absolutely hear what you're saying. I guess we would call those unallocated coins. They're unallocated Bitcoin, unallocated Ethereum. So that makes perfect sense. But if there's any manipulation, it's only to the upside. And so my question to you is, given the WebBot reports, given other data, given the fact that the cryptos appear to be real, given the fact that the Ethereum network is absolutely unbelievable, with dozens and dozens and dozens of major corporations and banks wanting to be involved in Ethereum. This crypto story, now for those of us that are going to be intellectually honest about it, okay, because early on I was not a Bitcoin adopter. I very much was anti-Bitcoin. Everybody knows that. But there comes a point where you need to be intellectually honest and say, look, maybe the right thing to do is to take a small entry point into these cryptos so that you have some skin in the game should they run to the moon. And that's what they've been doing. So my question to you is, as it pertains to Bitcoin, is it a bubble? Is it the next tulip mania? What do you think the future is of Bitcoin? Are we going to see a big pullback before a run to 10,000? Is it here to stay? Is it a bubble?
Well, first of all, it's definitely here to stay. I've been an advocate of it. Once I learned about it and understood it, that was the big thing. I was very anti-Bitcoin as well, because, coming from a hard asset guy, it was hard to understand. But once you do understand it, it is an amazing technology. And no, it's not in a bubble. It'll be here for decades. So, but it's not something you want to watch, the price, because it's going to be very volatile. You take your position, you sit and you wait. Silver, on the other hand, I think we're getting near the end of the waiting point. But there's all kinds of issues and problems with silver and gold turning into money again. because nobody has it anymore. Everybody can get their hands on some Bitcoin today if they have a smartphone. So I think Bitcoin has a lot of advantages, and some of the cryptocurrencies, not all, most will go away, but some of the cryptos, Ether is an amazing story. It's like buying Microsoft on the first day. But yeah, I think the cryptos will be more used as money than gold and silver ultimately, for various reasons. But the main reason is that there's just not enough silver to go around, and gold. There's a lot of gold, and I think gold will be brought back as as used as money. That's what the Fed says, at least. But the cryptocurrencies are better. Truthfully, Bitcoin's better than gold and better than silver when you're looking at daily transactions and transactions around the world. And it's outside of the, they rig the market of Bitcoin by saying, bringing up these stories like the ETF that got denied. That was completely to bring the price of Bitcoin down from $1,200 to $800. The Mt. Gox crash was all about making the price dive from $1,000 to $100. So the manipulations are different. On the comics, they just click a mouse. But with Bitcoin, you got to do it a little differently. But definitely, the banks are knee deep in it. Just look at Blythe Masters and her company called was it Digital Assets or something to that effect. They're working with the DTCC to control that market and that entity, the most criminal entity known to man. So yes, I am knee deep in cryptocurrencies. I try to keep a 50-50 balance between silver and cryptocurrencies, but it gets harder and harder as the cryptos move up. You got to buy more silver. And it's great when they're giving away silver at $17. So, yeah, much longer story at a different time.
Yeah, just a couple more questions before we let you go. The blockchain issues with Bitcoin right now are quite serious, and will there be a fork? What's going to happen here in the future? Evidently, the big problem right now is that Bitcoin has become so popular all over the planet with retail outlets as well as people, just citizens of the world. The blockchain is too cumbersome. The transactions are taking too long. And right now there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 160,000 unconfirmed transactions waiting to be confirmed. That's not tenable at all for the guy who wants to use Bitcoin, who wants to pay for a cup of coffee or a t-shirt with Bitcoin. Where do we stand here with the blockchain and Bitcoin? Is this thing, do you think, going to be resolved? Or could it be the Achilles heel for Bitcoin? And that's why we're seeing so much Ethereum interest right now, because Ethereum is much faster at handling these types of transactions. Your thoughts?
I see Bitcoin and Ethereum as completely two different things. I see Bitcoin as money and a means of exchange. I see Ethereum as a platform and a tool. But the scalability issue will be fixed in due time, just like every other issue with Bitcoin. It's anti-fragile. Something breaks in Bitcoin, they fix it, and it's that much stronger going forward. Scalability debate. I've been on the Bitcoin Unlimited side for a long time because I know the banks are about to crash, and I want Bitcoin to be able to be used in everyday transactions. And so I am very much in favor of a hard fork, but I think there might be a few third options coming down the line because people understand now on both sides. Both sides have their pros and cons, and hopefully they'll meet somewhere in the middle and fix the scalability issue. I don't think it's as hard as they have made it out to be, but we're going to find out in the next few years. I think Cliff High's data shows that the scalability issue turns into be a non-issue at some point, and the instant transactions kick in when they just tweak Bitcoin a little bit. So we'll see what happens going forward. But definitely on a philosophical level, the need for Bitcoin to be available for use for humanity this year when the banks crash takes precedent over security and all the other things that the SegWit people are offering. So I've been in the hard fork camp for a while, and we'll see how it goes. According to Cliff, he's got Bitcoin out in the data for decades. So not much to worry about in the future.
Yeah, and just one final word on silver, too. The silver data that the web bots share and that Cliff shares is always very positive and suggests far higher prices for silver. I mentioned the Ethereum move from 20 to 160, 170. Silver, let's call silver 20 right now. Really, once you pay a premium in shipping, you're paying about $20 an ounce for a decent coin. There's no reason that we couldn't see $180, $200 silver in the future, Bix, but the web bots are predicting prices even quite a bit higher than that, aren't they?
Well, yes, but you got to remember the prices we see today are not exchanges that exchange physical silver. I think we'll have a breakdown of the banking system and then new markets set up to price silver, and it will be clearly different than what it is today. Right now, they use the COMEX and the LBMA to rig the price of silver lower through over 300 billion electronic silver ounces are sold every year, which is ridiculous. So, yeah, we will have a free market for silver one day, but it probably will not happen when the COMEX and the LBMA are still open for trading. We need a real silver market, a physical silver market where people who want to buy silver bring their money to the exchange, and the exchange gives them silver. Derivatives, futures, options, swaptions, you name it, will all be a bad word in the very near future when the banks crash.
No, that's right. And as listeners know, the way it used to work on the LBMA for like 100 years was that it was 5 or 6 major banks that literally fixed the price of gold and silver on a daily basis. And one of those banks was the Rothschild Bank. And the Rothschilds, I think, got out of that game in 2006 because they could see the writing on the wall with all this epic criminality with the paper silver and the paper gold. And now this new silver fix involving Thomson Reuters and CME Group, that's falling apart. We absolutely need... And by the way, it's the only commodity on planet Earth that's priced that way, Bix. It's absolute lunacy. It's dinosaur nonsense. It's
required, though. It's required to keep the unbacked fiat monetary system going.
Right. Well, okay, here's the final thing I just want to say. I know we're going long here, but I got to round this out with the Ethereum discussion because for anybody who's not understanding Ethereum, this is just a list of the attendees at this recent Ethereum conference. And it includes, and Bix, you're really going to appreciate this because it includes some of the bad guys like CME Group, DTCC. As listeners will recall, Bix and I talked about the DTCC in that incredibly popular interview that we did. What was it, Bix? The Horrible Truth? That History Channel doesn't want you to know?
They flew me down and interviewed me for 3 or 4 hours, and they never showed what I talked about at the DTCC. It's a gigantic Ponzi scheme.
Yeah, and so there's JP Morgan has interest in Ethereum, Microsoft. Let's see, who else here? I noticed Scotiabank is on the list. You'll recall Harvey Organ had a very difficult time getting his physical metal from Scotiabank, the Scotiabank Vault up in Canada there. Who else is on here? Procter & Gamble, NASDAQ. I mean, some of the biggest power players on Earth are interested in this Ethereum blockchain and the Ethereum technology. We have Citigroup on here, BNY Mellon, ABN AMRO. Boy, I'm surprised we don't see HSBC on here, Bix. It is just a who's who of power players on planet Earth. S&P 500, S&P Global, Swiss Re, Thomson Reuters. I mean, it's really
Ethereum is
really bizarre.
Ethereum has been my favorite asset for a couple years now. I sold a chunk of silver to buy Ethereum. That's how much I love that. Crypto token is not even a currency, really. But the platform is just, the brilliance of putting that thing together. Everybody will be involved with it in some way or the other. And all it does is it allows people to use the technology of the blockchain, that truth machine called the blockchain. And Ethereum is going to go to unspeakable heights. I have said that Ethereum will go much higher than Bitcoin on a dollar for dollar basis. And that's saying a lot because there's a lot more Ethereum tokens out there than there are Bitcoin. But if you're looking for the 2 places to put your money in the cryptocurrencies that are bound to survive, both of them are in Cliff's data going out decades, and most of the others are not in his data. I would say Ethereum and Bitcoin are the places to be.
Yeah, it's just a very interesting story, and I know, look, I feel like I missed the boat on Ethereum because I didn't buy it at 8. I could have bought it at 8. I have a Coinbase account. I just sat there and looked at it, and I wasn't.
How many of your neighbors own Ethereum?
No, I know. And so I bought some at 20. I bought a few more at 50. And the bottom line here is that for listeners, what they need to understand about Ethereum is do your research. Take your time. I don't think you've missed the boat, even if it runs up to 200-300, because what you need to understand is that this is in the very early innings. This is probably the pregame to a 7-game World Series, what we're seeing right now, because our friends, neighbors, and colleagues have never heard of Ethereum. Nobody knows what the blockchain is. Walk around your neighborhood, go to a dinner party, ask people about the COMEX, the LBMA, or the blockchain. You'll get blank stares, and then they'll turn and they'll want to talk about Dancing with the Stars. So the bottom line is, guys, is that right now Ethereum has a market cap of somewhere in the neighborhood of 16 to $17 billion. Given all of the outstanding dollars in yen and won on planet Earth, can you imagine where these things might be going? I'll tell you, Bix, I'm not cheerleading them. I'm really not. I'm just starting to be open-minded about the possibilities because I'm with you. I think the cryptocurrencies are here to stay, and it's something we're going to continue to follow.
Well, yeah, in Ethereum, just think it's got the $13 billion market cap. JP Morgan trades $2 to $5 trillion every single day. A single bank trades $2 to $5 trillion every single day out of their secret Florida office. So the 10 billion, 20 billion, 100 billion, 10 trillion, those numbers are nothing compared to the amount of money that can go into these cryptocurrencies, and the big players want in. At the end of the unbacked fiat system, you're going to have central banks printing money to buy the cryptocurrencies.
Wow. Well, that's quite a prediction. Well, guys, you know what? I sure hope you've enjoyed this interview. I really enjoyed conducting it. Again, my hat's off to Liz Crokin. Really breaking bombshells and following the Seth Rich puzzle, the Seth Rich evidence, wherever it may lead, and it does appear to lead straight to the highest levels of the DNC. May justice be served, and may the nooses rest lightly on the necks of those who ordered the assassination of Seth Rich. Bix, how can people find you for your great information?
I am new to YouTube over the past 6 months, and I've got 17,000 subscribers already. So it's really exciting what's going on YouTube at Road to Ruta. Or you can go to roadtoruta.com, and I'm giving away a free book if you just sign up for the free email. So Road to Ruta, just think Road to Ruta.
Very cool. And I do watch your YouTube channel every day. You're putting something out, and they're always fun. What do you call that? You call that morning...
The morning news is the Horn of Zeus.
The Horn of Zeus, which refers to the coffee, right?
Yeah, it's a language invented in Northern California. Horn of Zeus is a sip of coffee, so
yeah,
a little different.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's like having your morning coffee with Bix, hanging out with a friend, and I really enjoy those, Bix. So thank you so much for coming on, buddy.
All right, thank you.
All right, and guys, I want to personally thank each and every one of my Patreons. You're really special, remarkable people, and thank you so much for giving us a vote of confidence and a pledge to help us persevere through literally what can best be described as Google's fascist tactics to kill the truth media.
There should just be no situation in which fake news gets distributed.
You are really truly giving us a lifeline, and it's one that we very much appreciate. Do check us out at sgtreport.com for real news 24/7, and please do check out our new health store too, survivalmode.us. Pick up some of the Magnesium Cream. I really do advise it. It's fantastic.
Hey Sean.
Yeah.
I bought some of those washing machine berries and love them.
Oh, you did? The soap berries.
Yeah, they're great.
Oh, that's fantastic, Bix. Thanks for that first-hand testimonial. I appreciate that. That's the store, survivalmode.us. I started that with my friend Sophia Smallstorm, and she's great. She's hand-selected all these items, all of these products we carry there. They're fantastic, and my wife swears by the Magnesium Cream. If you have some upper shoulder pain, any muscle pain, anything like that at all, I swear that stuff is like a miracle. You rub it on, and you get relief quite quickly. So thanks, guys, for checking out survivalmode.us. And again, a very special thanks to my Patreons. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in. We love you. Have a wonderful week ahead. God bless.
So I guess when you're talking about the removal of Christianity and really any sort of moral guideposts that we have, I think that from the perspective of the globalists, that's absolutely necessary. We are in the midst of a gigantic re-education campaign, and they have the most sophisticated tools that the world has ever seen.